Welcome to the Sarah Scoop Show. It's time to get the scoop with Sarah.
My name is Antonio Cayonne, and I'm going to be in this year's Christmas in Evergreen playing Elliot. So in this fourth installment of Evergreen, we're gonna get to come back to this town that everybody knows and loves and learn a little bit more about it. The main storyline is really following Michelle, Holly's character, as she prepares for her wedding, and the whole town is kind of, excited about that because it's a Christmas wedding, and there's nothing more amazing than that in the town of Evergreen. Rukiya and I, who play Hannah and Elliot, are continuing our romance from last year. Two best friends who took a shot on love and discovered that there's a lot there. But we're also chasing our own personal ambitions and trying to make our mark in this world. And so we're being pulled in different directions for the first time. So at the end of Evergreen 3, we kind of learned that Elliot, he fixed the broken snow globe. And so you discovered that he was really good with his hands. You knew that he was into art, and he had just taken over the Turner Tinker Shop, which belonged to Hannah's parents. And so in this fourth installment, what you're seeing is he has fully made the Tinker Shop his own. It's very busy, it's bustling. He has other helpful people helping out, like Mr. Henry Miller is part of the operation now. Hannah spends all of her free time there, and he's starting to dream beyond the town. He's starting to wonder where his actual ceiling is. Almost as if he feels as though being in the town might not be enough, might not be it. Maybe there's more outside of Evergreen. And similarly, at the same time, we're watching Hannah. Hannah sort of sets her sights on digging into the history of Evergreen by putting together a museum, a living monument to all the things that we've all been a part of. And so much like he's chasing his big ambitions, she's chasing hers as well. But hers feel like they live in Evergreen, and his feel like they might not. Getting the script this year was exciting, and for the first time I got to see kind of drafts of scripts as they were coming. Usually by the time I get on board with projects, because I haven't been a lead before, you're getting like the final, but at least in this one I got to see 3 or 4 versions of it. And this year, in addition to Zach Hugg writing it, he brought on a co-writer, so it was co-written by Shari Sharp, and there was a huge difference you could feel in some of the lived experience stories and the tone that she was able to bring. Even talking to Zach, he says that he has the quirk and she has the heart, and that was really evident. So getting this script and getting to see how Hannah and Elliot were able to dive into like the crunchy parts of relationships, that it wasn't just, there wasn't a lot on the surface. He and her, Zach and Shari, were able to write characters that have known each other their entire lives. And part of that is being able to write the nuance of things that they find difficult, of the ways they love each other, of the ways they bother each other, of the ways they miscommunicate with each other. And so getting the script this year, that was a really exciting thing to look at and to see how closely it mirrored real life. Yeah, it just offers like a nice layer of depth. I mean, oftentimes with Hallmark, we get to zoom in on the meet cute, like that moment where they bump into each other and they're like, oh, this person's kind of cute. Oh, this person's sweet. And then we watch something develop, but it's usually in a short period of time. It's a little bit more rare, although it certainly does happen, but it's a little bit more rare to watch 2 people who have been enmeshed in love and that are out of the honeymoon phase perhaps and into the nitty gritty of what the day-to-day world actually is, like what the obstacles are. And in fact, our director this year, Linda Lisa Hayter, had a second movie that already aired called Cranberry Christmas. And in it, she explored a very similar thing where the 2 characters had been married, and that their relationship was sort of like going through a turbulent period, and over the Christmas season they found each other again. Wanting all love stories to exist, it's really important, not just in terms of representation, like who shows up on the screen, but how the stories show up on the screen too, right? Like not everyone's love story is we bumped into each other at the coffee shop and his coffee spilled on me and I was angry, and then I saw him like 2 hours later at the deli, and like that's an amazing story and it's a lot of fun, but it's not the only story. And so I think it's really exciting to dive into sort of different versions of what it can look like. It's a real gift. Rukiya and I did not know each other before Christmas in Evergreen 3, and it took very little time for us to figure out that we operated the same way. We approached scripts in a similar way. We're both very inquisitive. We both kind of like take the script and wring it out and want to like tear it apart and chop it to pieces and then put it back together and make sense of it for ourselves. It's fun to find somebody who works in a process that you also work in, which isn't always the case. And so that definitely fast-tracked our sort of relationship and our chemistry. But one of the most interesting things that happened is that as we got to know each other, we would share stories. It turns out we're both from Toronto. Then we geolocate and we're like, oh, we're from very similar areas. Oh, we know the same people. Oh, we went to the same theater school. We crossed paths. Our fathers knew each other back in the 70s. You know, like they crossed paths. So it was remarkable to get to know somebody and to at a glance. It's funny. We kind of, you know, in a non-romantic way, we kind of lived our own Hallmark meet cute where we were like, oh, you seem really nice. You seem really nice. And then we just went like, oh my gosh, our worlds are so parallel. And you know, getting to play that out on screen offers like a level of understanding, a level of trust that sometimes you don't find that quickly. And so we were not only lucky to be able to find it there, but now to be able to revisit it and to go deeper using the script and using these beautiful words and chewing into the relationship and being able to discuss our own relationships at home with our loved ones and our children and whatnot, and being able to bring those lessons into our daily work. I mean, I want to believe that I will always be able to like find someone like that and strike up that chemistry, but I know how rare this is. When you talk about how small the world is, like we're both in Vancouver right now. We both started in Toronto. It feels improbable that this is where we met, and yet here we are. Well, I guess I would kind of divide it into two. Like honestly, my favorite part of getting to show up in a lead role with Rukiya is spending more time on set. That was actually the most exciting part for me personally, was being there start to finish every day throughout the production, because it really gave me a chance to get to know people, and not just cast. It gave me a great opportunity to know cast, but to know you know, the entire camera team and the lighting and the sound guys, and depending on how long you're on set for, sometimes you just have these like quick fleeting moments and don't get to know each other. But I think that if we look at this whole thing as a collaborative project, which it is, you know, it's an art form that everybody shines in, even if the final product looks like this face on camera. This face has been lit, this face has been dressed, this face has sound, this face has et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're one small sliver of it. And so being able to be there on set and get to know the people that are doing that and become friends with them and make it clear that we really are working together and that we're all in this, you know, as one, and that like there isn't a hierarchy or anything like that. It's like it's one team, one dream. That was my favorite part, because even last year, I think I was on set for 7 out of the 15 days, whereas this one, it was every single day. So that was my favorite part about being in a role this big. With regards to doing the work, I think my favorite part was having an arc, was being able to track through an entire script, and the challenge of knowing that we're going to shoot things out of order, but that we need to be able to pluck out this individual moment that happens, you know, on page 30 of 100 and get it right, and be precise about it. And so I found that really exciting, because I also haven't had the opportunity to do that outside of theater. And in theater, you're never playing anything other than chronologically. The play begins and you go all the way through it and you get to the end. So you can find those moments as you're moving through the play. Whereas with television, you show up and we're like, we're doing scene 15 and we're doing scene 82 today. Like, okay, so you have to go to put that together. I think that for me, the thing that I'm most excited for the fans to see, anybody who kind of like tunes in and listens to me and or follows me knows that one of the drums that I bang all the time is about representation. I didn't grow up seeing people like me in roles like this. I would never have seen a Rukiya and an Antonio in a movie back in the 90s. And if I did, because it's not that they never existed, or they didn't exist at all, but if I did, what I wouldn't see is a diverse world. I wouldn't get to see a world where everybody was just brought to the party. Everyone was represented. Everyone got to show up. I would see a world that was homogenous, that was all black, that was all white, that was all one thing. And that wasn't the world that I grew up in. I'm the product of an interracial relationship. I show up in the world as black. I'm biracial. I'm married to a woman. Our kid is biracial. So the thing that I'm most excited for is that a movie like this right now, with us, with Holly leading it, with Ashley leading it, with Barbara leading it. I mean, the women of Evergreen are forces to be reckoned with to begin with, and to now start to look at it through a slightly different lens and to say, right, putting them all together in one spot is creating a landscape that there's going to be, a younger generation watching that see themselves being offered an invitation by it showing up on screen. And there's been a lot of that this year in Hallmark, and I'm really excited and truly believe that this is the beginning of something, that Hallmark is moving in this direction to start to kind of dictate the terms in terms of what shows up on screen and how people are represented and how they show up for people. But that's what I'm the most excited for, honestly. I'm stoked that this is my first lead. I could talk about that until the cows come home, but there's something bigger than me at play, and I'm just grateful to be a part of it. So because I only showed up in part 3, and during part 3 I was mostly on set and in scenes with Rukiya, last year she's the person that I got to know the best. I didn't really know, I got to know Holly a little bit through being in the trailer. She's so inviting and she makes space for people, and her stories are next level, and she's always like wandering around on the phone with somebody, and you kind of like, you're like, who's she talking to? And she's talking to someone that will like make your mind explode, because they're like so culturally relevant and so influential. But at the end of 3, I didn't walk away with rich relationships. Actually, I walked away with fondness for a lot of people, but I didn't get to spend that much time with the cast. Whereas, Rukiya being in all 4 of them, they're bonded, like they're sisters, they're family. She refers to Holly as a big sister now. In after 4, that sort of did shift for me. I got to spend a lot more time with people, and I became a lot more comfortable with being able to reach out to them in my regular day. The person that I run into the most actually in the real world, because her family is living up here right now, is Ashley Williams. And funny enough, I've never done a scene with Ashley in 3 or 4, but I work with her sister on Darrow and Darrow, which is one of the Hallmark movie and mysteries. And so this summer I had a question that I didn't know who to ask, and Kim was the only person that I could think of that I might be able to go to. And so I reached out to her because she's like salt of the earth, nicest person. And she was like, glad you reached out. I don't know the answer. My sister does. Here's her number. Call her. And I had a bit of a panic. I was like, am I just going to phone Ashley Williams? Is this a normal thing to do? Because even for me, I was like, I look at Ashley and I just think she's a superstar. And then she picks up the phone and you realize like, she's a mom, she's an actress, she's an advocate, she's an activist, she's all these things. And she just shows up with kindness and delight. And then funny enough, every Saturday I would take my little guy, it's Saturday on Saturday, and we would go to the farmer's market and go pick up our fruits and veggies for the week. And I would run into Ashley and her family every week. And so we just started texting each other and being like, all right, I'll be there at 9, I'll see you there, because we knew that we would keep running into each other. So yeah, I have these like developing friendships, I guess, that I'm really looking forward to growing them. Rukiya is the one that I know the best. And then the other person that I spend the most time with actually, when I'm on set, is Daryl Shuttleworth, who plays Henry Miller, because he is a huge deal in the Canadian canon of theater. Like, I don't know that people know that. I think it's a secret. I don't even think he would talk about it, but I know that there would be times that I was in theater school and I would open up a book and I would see his name. And so when we got on set and he started telling me stories, I was like, oh my gosh, like you were the group above me that was creating space for theater to exist in Toronto. That's wild. And not just Toronto, he was everywhere. He's here now. So I'm mostly influence struck. People who changed something about something that I interact with in the world, that's what gets me. That's what, you know, and so even Daryl telling me stories from like the good old days in theater, I'm just like, oh my gosh, tell me more. Like, I love it. It's because he's passing down lessons that nobody would have access to. They're just these gems that he's holding on to. I was talking about this earlier with somebody, that one of the things that is the most impressive, Hallmark is, you know, great at a lot of things, and chief among them, I think, honestly, is casting good humans. And so one of the things that's so amazing is Ashley, Barbara, Holly, in this world, they have the potential, based on how important they are and how big they are and how connected they are, to just shut you down and not speak to you. They could do that and it would just be normal. A lot of stars do that. And they're just that's so far from their reality. They would never even consider behaving that way. They are generous. They are space makers. They are inviters, you know, like there's an energy that they hold on to. And Rukiya is exactly the same way. Linda Lisa, our director, was the same way. There's an energy that they hold on to, that they bring into the space, that really is about more. Come in, collaborate, be here. Like, the constellation has no end. And it's a pretty remarkable thing to see. Those are the kind of things that I don't have access to. I have no idea. There should be. I'm assuming that there will be. There are so many stories left to tell, quite frankly. And there's stories that we need to circle back on, right? Like, we haven't heard enough from Ashley's character. Like, where did they go? They've been living in France. Like, what is that life? Are they ever coming back to Evergreen? Same thing with Jill's character, you know, at the shop, and her partner, is he coming back? Like, I don't know. Like, it would make sense to me if there was a fifth, even if it was a fifth one to wrap everything up in beautiful bows, or if it was a fifth one to launch the next five. Like, yeah, the set is beautiful. Do you know what's fascinating about the set is it's a real place. So the town of Evergreen, as you see it, exists in Burnaby, which is a city just outside of Vancouver. And so and it's called Burnaby Village, and they have, it's sort of like a pioneer village kind of thing. So they have historical programming that goes year round. It's not even that old, but it's this beautiful preserved spot. And they do Christmas, they do like a Christmas festival there every year as well. And so when you walk onto set for Evergreen and you realize you're in Burnaby Village, you're really transported, right? Like, you're no longer it's like walking into Pleasantville in a weird way. Everything is trapped in time, not far enough that it's old timey, not close enough that it's modern, which gives it this really magical sheen to it as it is. And then on top of that, your art department comes in and they dress everything up, and all of a sudden things get larger than life, and they kind of animate, and they develop personalities. You know, if you think of the inside of the Tinker Shop, where I spend most of my time working, it's this really cool art studio with a glass blowing thing in the back, and that it feels like that shouldn't exist, but if it is going to exist anywhere, it exists in Evergreen. Same thing, you walk into the church, like, we've all walked into churches before, they're nice, but like, you walk into this church and you're just like, oh, this is the most beautiful place you've ever been. So yeah, the art department on this really does find ways to take something that is already already exciting and put together and turn it into something breathtaking. And art department can't take all the credit. because what I will say is that the DP and the camera team and the lighting team are like the finishing touches. They really figure out how to take something that's been made beautiful and bring it into your home and make you sort of like gasp. Like sometimes you're gasping and you don't know what's causing it, but it's like it's the way the light is hitting something in the background that just like blows your mind. And they're so detail oriented about that. So yeah, walking on set is one thing, and then watching them take that all the way to the finished product, you get to see the Christmas magic and how it comes about. I currently don't have any more Hallmark projects in the works. I've been shooting Mighty Ducks for the length of this year, so that's just about to wrap. And I think that's slated for Disney Plus, Disney streaming. And that's been like a great project to work on. It's so cool to drop into a project where the leads are all 12 to 15 years old, and you get these little moments where you watch them do something and you're like, you're a star. This is wild. You're about to be something huge and you don't know it yet. That's so cool. So, you know, there's I don't know, 10 kids on the project, and it's unlikely that all 10 of them continue on and have you know long, big, beautiful careers. But I will say this: you can always tell how good the kids are, how well the kids are doing by their parents. And the parents on this set, some of the most dedicated set parents that I've ever met. They're so into what their kids are doing without being like overbearing. There's a lot of space for the kids to be themselves, to express themselves, to grow, but also to learn while they're doing it, and to maintain some discipline and some decorum, and which is really, it's impressive. They're not just running free, but they're also not completely being molded to be something that they're not.
Thank you for watching The Sarah Scoop Show. Head to sarahscoop.com for more.